it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. We are focusing in and zooming in on a topic, and that is when the experience of I get you feels foreign. It feels uncomfortable. It makes you feel social anxiety. Oftentimes people are trained, habituated, and have experienced narcissistic family systems. Family system where the parents are narcissistic or psychopathic. And then the siblings have a inadvertent or hyper arousal to sibling rivalry. In other words, there's an intense amount of sibling rivalry. There is a lot of fighting going on. There is a lack of validation, and there is a lot of dysfunction in that family when there are narcissistic parents involved. As you can imagine, a narcissist who presents with an inflated sense of self-importance coupled with a lack of empathy, you can see then how this would take shape and take life as a parent-child relationship, and how an inflated sense of self-importance coupled with a lack of empathy creates a big divide between a role of a parent and the needs of a child. There is going to be a disconnect. There is going to be a mismatch. There is going to be a lack of satisfaction of needs and attentiveness to this child because they are going to be interpreted as a threat to this person's well-being. The narcissist oftentimes perceives others as an extension of themselves. In other words, the narcissist needs to surround themselves with people who validate and support them and mirror them back to them. In other words, the people who acknowledge and validate the narcissist are those who they need that reflection from outside of themselves. Because they don't lack it within, because they don't possess it within, they need to have that from without. They need that validation outside of themselves, whether it's relationships with people with whom they can rub shoulders with, elbows with, bellies with, toes with, that make them look good. In other words, I'm associating with this and this football guy, this and this cheerleader guy, whoever it is, they are trying to associate with people who make them look popular or give them a high status. And it's not because, I am a leader and I want to associate with other leaders. It's they're looking at it from the outside in. They're looking at it as a way to advance themselves personally, professionally, to get themselves there. It's like there was a great movie, it just reminds me of, although it's very innocent in nature, I think it was called Jersey Girl, where she's got this really big hair and she's like trying to date somebody, and she figures out I want to date a guy with a lot of money, so she ends up pretending to go be shopping for a Mercedes and goes to the Mercedes dealership, and then ends up falling in love with another man who's actually can and is buying a Mercedes. And it's just really cute. I think it was called Jersey Girl, but it was really funny, a very heartwarming story. But it's that idea that, in other words, they're going to pretend and really will do this as a complete way of life. Become part of networks, associate with people in high status, the people who have worked hard to obtain those positions, and will inadvertently see and do all these things to kind of slither their way into a relationship. And this can be basically an approach. And so, as you can see, if a narcissist is a parent and they have these needs in a lack of empathy, it means they're not going to be able to acknowledge and validate the needs, voice, and attentiveness, and being basically in tune to their child. But furthermore, they're going to negatively validate that child and say, what is wrong with you? You're not talented, you're not skilled, you're not getting it. Basically, you're not raising yourself. And John Bradshaw goes to this very in-depth in his book, Homecoming, Championing the Inner Child. And he looks at really, how this is put in place. And basically, there's what is known as toxic shame, which then is reinforced to the child, or what we call mirrored back to the child, making them feel ashamed, giving them age inappropriate or child development stage inappropriate tasks, not allowing them to have the autonomy, the independence, the industry that they need to kind of go out and live their life in a fully functional manner. They're going along a different developmental track where they're made to feel ashamed, feel inferior to, lack the autonomy and then develop a trauma bond and an attachment to this parent, which is unhealthy. And oftentimes this child then grows up to feel, that they are in a partnership with this parent rather than a parent-child relationship. So their parent doesn't even feel like a parent. Their parent feels like a partner or somebody who they are, their life is like dedicated to serving. And yes, people do, have close and intimate relationships, but to be fully functional, the child needs to be liberated and supported and validated for who they are and allowed to be this person and not just serve as a disappointment. So oftentimes this sense of disappointment can be internalized. And then this person becomes like just self-sabotaging. They get into a lot of trouble. They find themselves in trouble with the law because they're needing guidance. They're needing direction. So they're then seeking this guidance and direction from the wrong places, which ends up being oftentimes in the hand of the law. But, that does not have to happen to you. If you are in a relationship or in a family with narcissistic parents who are shaming, who are guilting, who are judging, who are criticizing, who are belittling, who are making a very uncomfortable and scary kind of yucky environment to be in, a lot of yelling, a lot of fighting. Number one, don't fight. Do not fight back. Do not yell back. Do not react back. Do not mirror back the same negative energy with which they are thrusting onto you. Do not engage with them on that level. Do not explain and justify yourself. Do not get into a position where you have to explain and justify everything that you need, that you feel, that you're experiencing. Because you'll find that is part of the whole negative and dysfunctional dynamic, is that there is a lot of fighting. And so fighting oftentimes becomes people's life. Their life becomes this battle, their life becomes this struggle, and things just don't work out. People can't get jobs, they can't get food, they can't form relationships. They end up on drugs, they end up confused, they end up, feeling depressed and anxious, and they just want to shut down, they just want to isolate. But I can tell you, you're not alone. If you feel alone in this family, I understand 100%. And I can explain to you that oftentimes narcissists, they will give you certain lessons in life. And so if this is to be it, then number one, just realize that sometimes people have parents, their own flesh and blood roles, where they are not able to attend to you and validate you and give you what you need. They're not able to give you the support. They're not able to give you the time. They're not able to give you the eye contact, the heart contact. They're not able to be present. They're living in a state of constant the hormones of stress. They're constantly trying to overrule and overpower you, make you feel that you're incorrigible. There's something inherently wrong with you. And oftentimes this is to satisfy the narcissist's needs, and they're throwing up their hands and saying, I can't do this. I can't be a parent, but we're just going to keep going here. And so, my advice for you would be to realize that oftentimes these battles are instigated by the narcissist, but they will project it onto you and say, you are the troublemaker. You are the one provoking this. So begin to detach emotionally from this. Begin to distinguish and get yourself distinct from their energy. And come into a real important place where you need to be able to say enough is enough, and I don't want to fight. And furthermore, I am not going to fight. And don't allow their hurtful words to become a trigger to you. And you will find that people who are raised in narcissistic families begin to kind of keep this within them ingrained. And furthermore, when they go into work environments, relationships, intimate relationships, that there can become very adversarial, or furthermore bite on the invitation to fight. They'll be at work and someone will say this and this and this, and then, there's this fight going on. Or they're in this and this intimate relationship, and then something comes up that provokes them, and then there's this fight going on. Cease all that activity of negatively feeding into abusive relationships where there's a lot of this fighting and a need to always be right. Because oftentimes relationships with narcissists are where they are always right. So you need, maybe this will become a real hot button and a trigger with you where you always need to be right or explain and justify yourself for your very existence. And you can stop that pattern of thought, and furthermore, stop that emotional feeling within your body, because thoughts are the language of the mind and feelings are the language of the body, and the two tend to kind of create a cycle. So if your feelings are feeling negative, shut down, hostile, agitated, and angry, and kind of hepped up, realize you need to kind of coach your body to feeling a little bit more relaxed. Come into a more relaxed and calm body. Begin to deep breathe and begin just to surrender and say, enough of the fighting. I'm not getting triggered by that. I'm not biting on that invitation to fight. That's not of interest to me. That's irrelevant, and it has nothing to do with me or where I should be. And I'm not going to be manipulated to feeling like I'm supposed to fight there, because that's really what the narcissist will do, especially if you're in a relationship such as in a family where they are your family and you are kind of like indelibly tied to them for life, your flesh and blood. I'm here to tell you that you don't need to be completely emotionally battered by these people. You need to emotionally detach, disengage from their toxic hostility and negativity and their tendency to constantly, repeatedly abuse you emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually to the point where you can't function. They are going to continue that. They are not going to have really a lot of remorse or guilt. They're not going to feel that they have done anything wrong. So you don't even want to go there. You don't even want to begin to fight it. It's not going to get you there. It's called an exercise of futility. So begin to redirect your thought pattern, your feeling, and your energy away from that. Just walk away. Walk away from it like it's just an issue that is too big for you, and give it up to the divine intelligence who can correct and rectify all things, and just let it go to something bigger and more intelligent that can resolve it. But you need to walk away, and you need to go through the steps of the recovery journal, which I'm going to reiterate here in the next couple days and sessions, so that people can really begin to work that, because you do need some tools and to really design a blueprint and a new outlook, a new perspective, a new feeling for yourself, your life, independent and distinct from this type of abuse. And oftentimes those tools are with consciousness and emotional and kind of thought patterns that you need to recreate and develop within yourself, so that you have these as tools to kind of dig yourself out of this hole with which they are trying to create around you. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.